people wait to find out what's going to happen. And it is Tuesday, the whatever, 17th of February 2026. So that means that I'm coming to you live from Israel and bringing you the latest updates about what is going on here and in the region that is affecting geopolitics. And starting off here in Israel, there's continued tension between Israel and Hamas, as well as Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Hamas have yet to give up their weapons, which they agreed to do under the ceasefire agreement signed back in October. And that means that they're actively violating the ceasefire every moment of every day. People often ask me why Israel doesn't go ham, no pun intended, to basically take care of that threat. Why don't we force them to disarm? Well, there's a lot of politics and diplomacy involved in this, but there's also the reality that Israel is still facing threats on multiple fronts and has to prioritize resource allocation to focus on the most urgent potential threat to Israel and Israel's security. And the Hamas is certainly a threat and one that will need to be dealt with. And at some point that will become evident in which way it will happen. Hello there, what does it say? Okay, you blame me for your headache. All right. Well, what can I say? Take some of the medicine we've developed that helps you get rid of your headache. You're welcome. Oh, look, an anti-Semite in the chat. Hey, why don't you smash the like button and subscribe? At least do that. Be useful. So, what exactly is happening between Israel and Hamas? Well, they are violating the ceasefire. They're doing exactly what I told you guys they would do. They're doing as best as they can to resupply and reorganize and retrain and get ready for the next round of fighting, which will probably be inevitable if they don't actually voluntarily disarm as they've agreed to do. Israel, for its part, is aware of that and is obviously monitoring as much as possible. And we are constantly stopping drones packed with weapons flying over the border from Egypt and doing what we have to do to make sure that those weapons don't get to them. At the same time, there are additional factors as to why Israel is not just going to deploy forces right now to get rid of Hamas, even though you'd think, well, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Yes, but resource allocation and military logistics and planning basically make it so that we're not doing that. Because we do have an active threat also in Lebanon, which is the Hezbollah, which we've had a truce with for a year and some months. Technically, that truce ran out. It expired about a month or so ago. And, well, the Hezbollah continues to basically violate the agreement to not build forces up south of the Litani River. So Israel keeps, destroying sites, bases, and taking out operatives who are doing that sort of thing. But it is an active threat, and we are aware that they may be plotting to do something on a wider scale, similar to October 7th, but with more force. with more forces, with more troops, whatever you want to call them, Hezbollah terrorists running over the border, driving over the border, which if they did that, would require a significant amount of, you know, logistics, support, soldiers, etc. So those are multiple fronts. Plus, we've got the situation in Syria, and we do need to monitor that because even though the current government, if you want to call it that, of Syria has said that they don't want to have any fighting with Israel, the fact is they're a bunch of jihadis, and they would love nothing more than to overrun Israel and do terrible things to us. So those are three fronts right there that we need to deal with on our borders. Plus, you've got active threats from ISIS groups in Syria that are a bit further away, but sometimes get closer to the border, as well as ISIS troops even in Jordan, who've done a couple of stupid things over the last couple of years, throwing rockets at us, etc. And even ISIS troops in, or, it's weird calling them troops, but terrorists, basically, even in Iraq, right? As well as you have the Houthis in Yemen, who continue to threaten us and basically shoot rockets at us every once in a while that we then have to shoot down. And you've got, of course, terrorists also in Judea and Samaria who are actively doing things that we need to combat. Damn this lighter. On top of all that, we of course have the big unavoidable gorilla in the room, the head of the snake, Iran. And specifically, the Ayatollah and IRGC dictatorship that have been oppressing Iran and occupying their country since 47 years. I say occupying their country because they are really a bunch of invaders. And you could say, what are you talking about? They were there before the Iranian invasion, the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Yeah, true. But they did come there by way of invasion hundreds of years ago. And they just made themselves, the fundamentalists made themselves the power that be in 1979 through a system of getting a revolution funded by and supported by communists, Marxists, even academics, people who supported the idea of getting rid of the Shah in favor of a more religious, theocratic state, which was, as time has shown, a terrible mistake. And that's why today, most people in Iran do not support that Ayatollah regime. One of the very first things that the Ayatollah did, Khomeini, back in 1979, 1980, when he took power, the first thing he really did was to get rid of a lot of the people that supported him and got him to power. Notably the left, the left-wing academics and communists and Marxists. He viewed them as a threat. And so he had many tens of thousands of them executed. And he did it rather rapidly to instill fear in the population and make them understand you now live under a theocratic regime, and that's how it is. So when people say, this is what the people chose in Iran, so they have, they made their bed, now they have to sleep in it. Yeah, okay, well, they've been sleeping in it now for 47 years, and they've been trying to get rid of it for more than 20 years. But to little or no avail, really, because the dictatorship is still in place. And as a result, hundreds of thousands of people have been executed or slaughtered in the streets or otherwise, killed in prisons, etc. So there's no great reason to think that the people deserve this after so long, especially when most of the people in Iran today weren't even born when the Ayatollah came to power. Right, 47 years is a long time. It's short, relatively, in all of history, but in terms of human life cycles, it's a fairly long time. A lot of people have been born in Iran since the revolution. And like I said, most people in Iran alive today were not actually born before the Ayatollah came to power. So all they've ever known is the dictatorship. And the majority of them do not support the dictatorship. From all opinion polls and surveys and research that has been done, it looks like anywhere from 60 to 90%, depending on which polls you look at, do not support the dictatorship, right? So, and 60% is really on the low end, right? Most Iranian people we speak with will tell you it's, less than 20% support the dictatorship. It might be, 20, it might even be 30%. But the overwhelming majority of people there do not support the dictatorship because their life is miserable right now. Their money is worth nothing. Their economy is in the tank. A lot of them barely have any water or electricity. And all the money that the government has, it spends on buying more weapons and funding more terrorist operations in proxy groups around the region in an attempt to destabilize the region so that they can simply remain in power and increase their reach beyond their borders. And again, they have violent intentions. They're not a peaceful organization. Their government wants to violently take over as much of the world as possible, and they say it quite openly. They constantly preach death to America, death to Israel, death to Great Britain, death to the infidels, and death to the hypocrites. Well, basically what they're saying is death to everyone who isn't like them. Because infidels and hypocrites covers pretty much the entire world, as far as they're concerned. Because if you don't believe what they believe, you're an infidel. Or if you believe what they believe, but you don't practice it, you're a hypocrite. That's just how they are. Of course, I'm talking about the government, yeah? In schools and public places, they paint flags on the floor so that you literally walk on, or walk over the flags, you step on the flags of America, Great Britain, and Israel. In public places, in schools, in all kinds of areas where normally there just wouldn't be anything painted on the ground in a civilized society. You wouldn't do that kind of thing. But they do it because, well, the government is psychopathic. And the people are forced to do it. In the schools and in other places, universities, etc., they've been taking away people's cell phones, even as they've brought the internet back online, so to speak. They take away their cell phones, and they do that in an effort to prevent people from using social media and to prevent people from voicing their opinions and sharing videos of what's actually been happening. From the latest reports I've been getting from inside Iran, people have been mourning, which is why for the past couple of weeks or so, there have been less protests, almost none, because people are literally in a period of mourning. Many of them don't know where their loved ones are. They're presumed dead or imprisoned, and they have no idea what's their fate. But those who do know that their loved ones are dead have been mourning. So a lot of people have been not coming out to protest. However, already yesterday, we saw a small amount of protests starting to happen again. People are basically getting to the point now where they're just like, well, we have to do something. We can't just sit still. We can't let the momentum die. So they're going out and making every effort to continue to push for a change. But of course, it is extremely improbable that they will succeed in overthrowing the government on their own without some kind of external help. Right? That doesn't mean that we have to have a full-scale invasion, because you really don't need that strategically or tactically. But an outside force is necessary to destabilize the IRGC enough so that the people can take control of the weapons and be in charge of the country by force and throw out the Ayatollah from power. And then obviously, hopefully prevent a power vacuum, which will certainly happen. There will be some kind of power vacuum. The question is, how quickly will it be filled? If it's an instantaneous fill and stability can be maintained, and they can, go forward with a plan to make the country peaceful as well as stable, and hopefully, pointed towards a democratic direction, well, that would be great. But those are some of the challenges that the US and others face when confronting the question of what to do with the situation in Iran. Because right now, there's been a lot of diplomatic activity, a lot of political activity. And right now, there's also a lot of economic activity with ghost ships from Iran being stopped in various places around the world by American troops as well as French and British troops. They've been stopping ghost ships full of oil that Iran has sent to try to give them to China and Russia and other places in an effort to shore up their political assurances and support, and to continue receiving weapons from those countries and other kinds of support. So that's another one of the fronts that's being faced. So will we see a resolution to the situation in the coming days? It looks like not days, unfortunately. My initial skepticism remains in play. It looks like the IRGC has figured out how to suppress the revolution exactly according to the playbook that I detailed at the beginning of even before this happened. And for now, unless there's some kind of outside intervention, they very well could survive this, which would mean more time, probably years, if not longer, of seeing the same Ayatollah regime in power. I hope it ends, but only time will tell. I hope it ends sooner rather than later. Anyway, that's going to be it for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. And yeah, that's it. Cheers. Shalom.